Hello, you have tuned in to Friends with Death Benefits. Today we are going to be unpacking marriage and all of the things that entail marriage versus grief, the great equalizer. So happy you could be here today.
What better way to do that than to bring in our guest for today, which is actually my wife. We're going to be talking to her in great detail about what it's like to support someone who's going through grief and some of her own experiences as well. Thanks for tuning in today, guys.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned into Friends with Death Benefits. I am your host, Tiff Mussman, and sitting beside me is the bearded lady tendencies, Justin Paulson. How are you? How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm fair.
Yeah?
I'm fair. Can I just jump right into this?
I wish you would.
Marriage is so friggin' hard. Dude.
You're not wrong.
It's hard just anyways, you know, and I'm sorry if you're a newlywed, turn this off. Just turn it off. But like marriage is so difficult and such a struggle and a challenge that when you throw a monkey wrench, like, you know, a death or something tragic in there, it makes it so much harder. And trying to communicate with your spouse during this process is so hard. So hard. And yeah,
There's a scary percentage. I forget exactly what it was. We should probably do our homework, but like the percentage of couples that get divorced after losing
a child
is like, or you know,
it's up there. It's
staggering.
It is staggering. It's up there. It's definitely something that surfaced in my mind right after Ethan's passing. Also, I hate saying passing. I'm not going to ever say that because it's too colorful. Like, yeah, after Ethan died, it definitely entered in my mind. It was a real conversation we had a couple days after, like, man, do you think that you could do the grief work and do the marriage work on top of it? Like, that's a tall order. So yeah, I mean, we're still married, guys. Sorry, nobody's filed or anything, but we're still married. So yeah, I wanted to kind of just take the opportunity today to talk about what it looks like as the support system to the grieving spouse. And my situation is obviously different than yours, Justin, because we're both grieving our child, and so it's our person. But I thought it would be an interesting perspective to talk to your spouse. So today we invited your stunning wife, Alyssa, in the studio with us.
Poor girl.
Yeah.
And she agreed.
She did agree. She's here. Say hi.
Hello. I am here.
So I thought we could talk a little bit about what it looks like from a spousal perspective, and just kind of dive into, like, Alyssa has an interesting job, and it's sort of encompassing in the topics that we're talking about. So, yeah.
For those that don't know, me and Liz have been together for 9 years, married a little over 5. Care to introduce yourself there? Tell them your name.
Hi, it's Alyssa.
She's very nervous about the microphones. I told her it's
I guess
fine.
the first time I've really done anything like this. Yeah, so it's a little weird of a situation.
Is that what she said to you on your wedding night?
It's been just 9 years of her saying, "I've never done this before. Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, just try it.
You'll like it."
And I'm wrong a lot.
We hope this isn't one of those. And if it gets weird in here, I'm just gonna jet.
Yeah, that's
you good with it?
She does that too usually. So that's why we rode separate. If she needs a ride home, you got her, right?
Yeah. All right. Fair play.
But no, it's thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. She's been my biggest support through this whole thing, through life in general. It's good to have someone to go through life with. and that you like. Some people have someone to go through life with that they don't like. They're just like, oh, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, we're stuck together. So.
But I do enjoy you.
You're all right. You're all right yourself.
But I'm sure Tiff probably has. I'll let Tiff start picking your brain.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see where
Okay.
this
So you guys
goes.
have been married for 5 years, which means that Deneen, your mother-in-law, has been in your life for 9, right? Because you guys have been together for 9. So, what was your relationship like with Deneen?
Oh, she's great. She's one of the most kind-hearted person in my life. I mean, she mothered everybody. So
wow.
you always hear those scary stories of like, oh my God, your dreaded mother-in-law, or oh my God, the dreaded daughter-in-law or whatever. But it wasn't like that. She wanted to include me in everything and went out of her way to make sure that you were comfortable, and it was never weird from the beginning, which was really nice. Yeah. It was, she was
That's
very
a rare
accepting.
occurrence.
Yeah.
That's a rare occurrence.
Very loving. Always.
She liked to remind us of that. She'd always say stuff like, Lisa, isn't it so great that we love each other?
Oh.
Do you know how many people hate their mother-in-laws and hate their daughter-in-laws? She's like, look at us. Look at how great we are.
Look what we're doing.
And
I knew you'd love it. I knew.
Justin,
you'd love
do you
it.
see how lucky
my
you
God.
are? Do you know that?
Yeah.
Do you know how important it is for your mother to like your wife? And I do.
And I do.
Right.
I
Like
really
when we got married, and I was like, well, do you want to come with to like, try on dresses and stuff? She's like, really? Like, you're gonna let me come with to do that? I go, well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Why not? You're part of this. You're half of the reason why we're here today. So
yeah. Good perspective. So you guys really got close.
Yeah.
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 She was like my mom. I mean, like, and a mother that you would always want. Like, like I said, she always thought of you. She put everyone before herself. She knew more about you than you felt sometimes. Like, she'd go on vacation and she'd find something for you, and you're like, I would have never picked that out for myself, but I love that. You know what I mean? Like, she's very genuine.
Yeah.
And
so she really took time to really get to know you.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted you to feel included.
And not just as like Justin's
right,
lady
Sometimes-
love, but
yeah.
just as an individual.
We'd gang up on him all the time.
Yeah.
She'd take my
Perfect.
side.
It's perfect. She would?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
great. That's great.
She loves her son. She loves her baby boy, but
So what, because you guys were so close and you had spent all this time nurturing this mother-daughter relationship, puts you in a really interesting position when there's just sudden death, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
So for me, I go, I guess, into survival mode at first. Like I'm good at compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
I'm very good at being like, okay, this is what we have to deal with right now. This is what I have to do, and then I'll emotions later. And and this was like this is Justin's main number one. Like I'm your wife. I know that, but mom comes first. Mom always has. Mom always will, and I was okay with that because she should. She's an amazing lady, and. And I had to just stay as sane as I could to help make sure that he made it through. I mean, it was days of just being broken down and not being able to do much at all. And so at first for me, it was just kind of like, okay, yep, this has happened. We're going to deal with it. We'll do what we have to. And it took me a few weeks after that and just trying to get through everything because, as you guys know, the situation with the group is not the greatest. So having to go through a funeral in that situation was difficult. So getting through all that, then it was just kind of, I got really depressed, really bad. I really tried, and I will say I pride myself in really trying to be the person that sees the bright side of things.
Sure.
That's my way of getting through things, and I couldn't see it. it was devastating.
Did you find yourself sort of, even though you were internalizing those feelings and you were feeling like there's just no end to this kind of thing, did you feel like you had to sort of put on a little bit of like, listen, babe, we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
Like, I got you. We'll be on a different side of this sometime and whatever, but not really believing it, just really going through the motions of saying it.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, you just kind of flow, and it's like, okay, yep, this is what we're doing. Not really even thinking, just like you said, just kind of going through it. Not, you're in the moment, but you're not necessarily even there. Like, you know, you guys have kind of talked about with your fog and that. You know, I mean, you're just kind of there, and you just do it. And all right, this is today. What do we have to do today?
You know, we kind of talked about like the business side of it, like when you're doing the funeral plans and that sort of thing. I imagine as the spouse, a lot of it is the business side. Yeah. Like you have to sort of, you're this, you know.
Yep. We got to try to coordinate what you can. And because, I mean, you don't want that other person to have to deal with any of those things while you're already dealing with such a traumatic situation, you know. And I mean, the loss of a loved one is hard, but when it's those specific, strongly, you know, like, you know, not everyone has the same relationship with their mom or their dad, you know, that might not necessarily be as hard, but that monumental moment, that person that you have to have that moment of breakdown, and they're, you know, as for me, that I'm a supporting role. Like, granted, you know, she was a very special person to me, but it wasn't my mom, you know. It wasn't my person. It wasn't.
Did you ever have moments where you hid your sorrow for Justin?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. In those moments, so sometimes someone just has to put a smile on to, you know, make it through, and the other person needs to sometimes, I feel like, be able to see that, you know, like, okay, we can do this. It'll be okay. I don't know if it's really going to be okay, but
do you grieve privately about Deneen, or like?
No, not completely. Like, at the beginning, I did. I felt like it was, like I said, you know, I got to try to be strong. So I'll do that when I can. And then it just kind of hit me. And then it was, I took a week off of work and slept a lot. And, you know, so I do. I talk, I guess, when I need to. But I would feel overall in that stance, being that other, like you said, the spouse, I mean, you kind of have to. You know, you kind of just have to make sure that, okay, And
I think it's important, though, for you to realize that there are many spouses that don't share that sentiment. You're a rare breed. She put herself in situations that I wish she wouldn't have had to. I've made it no secret how volatile our relationship is with my mom's husband. Part of that difficultness involved him not wanting me around in the first couple days to figure out what funeral home we were going to use to talk about what was going to go on, because this is who he is.
He alienated you. Yeah. And
she went there alone to his house, and she has as bad of a relationship with him as I do. And she went there because she felt, and it's not because I asked her to, she went there because she felt that I deserved to have a voice, and I deserved to have an ear in the room that he didn't want me to have.
Wow.
And that was just crazy brave.
That is so brave. Because he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
And it's a bad situation. So you put a bad person in a bad situation, the outcome is never usually good. So good for you to advocate for him.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, and because it was about trying to make the memory of her everything that it deserved to be, and trying to take that, just no stress, no drama. That's not what it's about. You know what I mean? You guys can do your thing. We have to get this through this together. You know, it's about making sure that
Alyssa's the most diplomatic person I have ever met. She is. She's so incredible at that. She's just the calm center in most situations. So let me ask you, were you seasoned in the grief field? Like, did you kind of know what you were and Justin were headed for?
I mean, I've dealt with a lot of things, and I guess mentally I try to prepare myself for that in those moments. And I've lost a few people significant in my life, my grandfather being one, but my most unexpected was my stepbrother. In 2016, he passed away. He worked on wind turbines, and he had a faulty, I don't exactly know any of the equipment names, so I'm not even going to try to do that, but some kind of faulty equipment malfunction and fell pretty far down and didn't make it. He was 31, so that one was probably the biggest one I've ever felt. Most unexpected. A lot of the other ones before that.
That's I mean, you expect your grandparents, right?
Yes.
We even expect our parents, sadly.
Yeah.
But these tragic young deaths and such a horrific,
Yeah. And my dad was there, so, he had to see that and be a part of that, and I couldn't imagine. I mean, I only have to hear about it. I only have to deal with it on the other side, but I didn't have to see him in that spot. I didn't have to, I mean, it's hard to talk about. The only thing that they were able to donate were parts of his eyes because of the damage to his body from falling. And so, I'm saying a lot.
That's okay. So not only have you walked the grief journey, but you've come alongside others before, like your dad. That had to have been so hard to watch your dad go through the trauma of that. Yeah. And
still.
And still.
Yeah. He has nightmares.
His marriage didn't last.
No.
He became part of that statistic, and I think Lissa's the type of person who wants to take care of everybody before she takes care of herself. I benefit from that greatly. But her dad, I assume that we can be completely honest about everything.
We have been from the beginning of life.
Her dad struggles with drug addiction.
Yep.
Okay.
And keeping his life in order. And Lissa feels a strong urge to take care of him as a parent would, even though she's the daughter.
Yeah.
And she feels responsible in that way and takes on a lot of that. Liz, do you want to kind of talk about like what that's like, what you've seen, just like with your dad and like, like
in the situation with Chris?
Yeah, and just like what how his life's changed in the past couple of years and how that's affected you.
Yeah. So he's been off and on drugs my whole life.
This is your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad. And so that's always been a struggle for him. He actually lost his brother when he was in high school. And then had some other family situations come of that as well. His parents were also the statistic that didn't stay together when a child died. So he had a lot of different things he dealt with, learning issues and stuff like that. So growing up, he's just coping has not been something he's the greatest at with his grief. And he chose to do some things he shouldn't. And, off and on he's clean. And, he was doing okay when him and Chris were working and they were together. And obviously he falls off and on. But I think he was doing okay then. I know things weren't perfect because so once Chris did pass, then it was they were getting a divorce, him and my stepmom, and so he just continued to fall and was using and not attending his therapy, and he would come over and he's like, I'm having these nightmares of this, seeing your brother this way, seeing him that way, and just dealing with so much tragedy all at once, he spiraled pretty hard, and he's doing better now, but that's something I don't know that he'll ever be able to really move past. I mean, and I don't know, I mean, if it's his coping skills are not great, I mean, we all talk about how we do good things and we do bad things for ourselves, but, it's, I don't know.
I think it's a really good example of it can take over you if you let it.
Yeah.
Tragedy can completely take over your life, and to the point where you don't even know how you got that far down. And I think talking about it and doing the kind of things we're doing are the things that keep you from. He's unfortunately a very good example to us of where it can take you.
Yep.
Yeah, if you don't find those healthy ways to deal with it. I mean,
internalizing is it's a human. I think it's one of the first responses in human nature when it comes to this type of thing, but it will eat you alive. It will eat you up. It'll destroy your marriage. It'll destroy your health. It'll destroy your relationship with others. And
right. And when you're not well, you can't take care of others. You can't be there for others. And when people go through that, like you said, trying to grief the same, like nobody will, even if it's in that same situation. My dad was grieving a different way than my stepmom was grieving, differently than my two younger brothers are grieving, and then my brother's son, you know what I mean? Like it's all so different, even in one experience, that it creates those negative things and that distance, and those things happen, or you can hopefully try to overcome, but sometimes you succumb to it, but don't stay there.
Right. Yeah.
You can't stay there.
You can't.
Like I've heard in other podcasts.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah. You can't.
No,
stay
you
there.
can't stay in there.
I feel like this is an opportunity because, like, when we live together, we sleep in the same bed, but there's still things that it's such a slow process. This whole grief thing. And I feel like there's still things that, like, we haven't even asked each other, or, things that maybe we don't understand. Maybe this is a good opportunity. So my childhood and Alyssa's childhoods were very different in the way that I've lived in the house I've lived in for 22 out of my 35 years on 3 different instances. I've lived in the same neighborhood. At 35, I walk around my neighborhood with my wife and be like, oh, I used to hang out over in that yard, or I used to, as much as people move state to state, country to country, all over the world, my life has been very centrally located and fairly secure in that way, where Alyssa has moved, what is it, over 14 times, and like when you were in middle school and high school? Something like
when
that.
we were younger.
Yeah, like
when I was way younger, we moved around a lot here in Mason.
And she never felt like, she had told me she never felt like
moved to Minnesota.
She had that secure home.
Yeah.
That was something she never got to experience. And when we moved into my house now, where we've been for 8 years, it was her first experience with that security. And it meant a lot to her in ways that I didn't necessarily understand. And I know you've expressed to me a lot that was one of the major things that you were appreciative of my mom about, was that she helped us have that experience that you'd never experienced. And it was different for you than any experience you'd had with either of your parents. What what's it like for you? What was it like for you? You know, when we lost her did you feel like that thing you'd gotten used? Did you fear a return to that uncertainty of life that?
Yeah. She was definitely a security blanket, allowing me to have that feeling. I mean, it's grief over losing a person is just as much grief of losing your sense of security and your sense of your home, and the fact that you're like, oh, now what do we do? Now it's in this other person's hands. There's nothing I can do about it. This person doesn't like me and doesn't like the situation that I'm in, even though I'm not doing anything negative. Now I'm going to have to deal with that. It puts you into this situation where do you get to grieve completely the person, the individual, and being able to like spend your time in that moment, or like now I'm in fight or flight. Now I have to like I have to figure out how to survive a little bit. You know, you have to. I
wonder if that wasn't how your dad felt. You know,
definitely.
Like how many times that has gone through his head. Like, yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Huh.
But yeah, he blames himself a lot. I believe, and it's unfortunate that he does that because Chris loved his job and what he did, but my dad feels guilty for getting him into doing that.
Sure. Because
my dad did it for years before, and you know, but they make good money and they love doing it, and so that as well, you know, well, maybe if he hadn't been there, maybe this would have never happened, you know. So it starts there, and then it turns into, you know, so many other levels, and I understand the way that my dad thinks in a lot of ways, because I used to do that too. I mean, I'm his child and I've grown up with them, but I've been able to change some things. I won't say that I don't do some of the same things he does, but he's got bad coping. He's not a good coper. He needs to get out. He needs to read more books. He needs to do different things because his choices are not. Right. I mean,
Alyssa's dad, listen, you need to cope and not dope.
I listen to Dad.
You are very different than that in a lot of ways, and I know you are not one who likes to. She's very humble. We're different in a lot of, like, all the things that I am, she's not, and all the things that she is, I'm not, and in a lot of good ways, and she keeps me humble, but she has reason to brag, in my opinion, on a lot of the things. I think you voiced to me that you're noticing things about her that I've known for a long time. Her patience, her knowledge about some of this stuff, her ability to separate some of the feelings from the logic of a lot of this stuff. I know you've bounced things off of her, you know, and have told me how much you've appreciated her insight, and I think it's good to talk about why you have that. Alyssa went to college, got a bachelor's in human services with 2 minors in sociology and psychology. I like to say that I dropped out of college because math is hard. She changed her major because statistics is hard. She was a stats class away from being a psychologist. She decided to go a slightly different way. She worked for almost 8 years with the community around here of people that have mental illness, ranging all the way from depression all the way up to serious things like schizophrenia. You spent 8 hours a day for almost 8 years dealing with people that don't think and act and behave the way people are used to, and you had to learn how to have patience for that and learn how to understand that. And I think that in turn made it almost easy for you to do that with people that don't have those issues. which is a huge skill, and it's been unbelievably helpful to me. But I guess what I would like to talk about is, based on your experience and what you learned through having that job and working with people, what are your opinions on its connection to grief as far as people's mental health and people's, mental health getting out of control? Like, do you feel a lot of the afflictions that some of your clients had something or a lot to do with, past grief or current grief? Or
Okay.
I know that's a lot, so I just figured I'd just let you go.
Thanks for listing off my creds.
Of course, I'm your biggest fan.
I appreciate that. So yeah, first, I guess working with individuals, and I mean that's exactly what it is. I mean, they're all individuals. You can have a person that has schizophrenia and is still an asshole. You can have a person who, so you always have to look at them as individuals. And I mean, it goes back to the same thing like you talk about with the grief. I mean, you're going through the same situation, but it still is different. I mean, we're all completely different. By the different, I would say, trainings and stuff I have, you really learn you're motivating the person to try to get them to think for themselves and trying to get them to answer these questions themselves. So it comes down to seeing how they go through it differently, because some of those mental illnesses, you handle things in a certain way anyways. I mean, if let's say you're hallucinating and you have hallucinations come along with you, whatever your diagnosis is, that can change the way that you're perceiving your everything. So to try to grieve through that, I mean, sometimes there isn't even understanding. I've known situations where people who have illnesses have a parent that passes away, and they really don't understand. You know what I mean? They don't. But then there's people that it's like, they have to be in the hospital for 6 months or longer. You know what I mean? It's just, it's hard to say how an individual is going to react, because, they still are different. And each individual is going to be a little different, but seeing some people who have gone through some of those situations can cause some kind of traumatic breaks, and cause a mental illness. It can be an early onset. I can't give out specific situations because of HIPAA. So I'm trying to word my things without trying to
compromise yourself.
Anything. So it's very interesting to see those types of things from the point of view of someone with a mental illness, to see how they handle those things, because some people, grief isn't just when someone dies. They grieve when they have grief when they lose their remote. You know what I mean? It's that.
Have you ever had a circumstance where someone enters into mental illness because of traumatic loss? That can the trigger. It can be a trigger for some people. Some of them no, but I mean, there are a lot of things. I mean, we talk about PTSD and, how that can really create that, and, self-medicating, substance abuse.
Yep. I mean, and that can give all sorts of different symptoms to you, I mean, is irritable, I mean, you can't think, you get really distracted. I mean, there's so many different.
I cannot imagine navigating through this with a severe mental illness.
No.
I mean, right. I think grief is a mental.
Anyway.
Yeah, it does. I mean, grief is a mental illness, in my opinion. Right. It's making me crazy as shit. But imagine really being schizophrenic, or having some serious mania, and or where you are fully chemically dependent and imbalanced. Right. I cannot imagine.
Well, that's the thing. We talked last week about irrational fears, and I think the one thing that's kept us on track is every one of those crazy fears we talked about as being real to us, but we're aware that they're irrational. imagine having these thoughts and fears, and in your brain,
Right.
they're not irrational at all. They're perfectly reasonable, and no one's going to be able to talk you otherwise.
Reality checking, that's what we call that. You have that ability. That's something that you can try to do with different people that are in those situations. Is something we used,
Do you feel it was it weird, and maybe it's weird to tell me because I'm asking about me, but like, was it hard for you to shut that switch off or even on? Like, obviously you're trained in a lot of this stuff, and in dealing with me, do you feel like, okay, my training's going to kick on, or do you feel like that was inappropriate at all? Like, what went through your head in dealing with me
with me and with myself? I usually go to that because, I learned those things for reasons, and they work for reasons, and so I try really hard to, utilize any information that I have, even though I don't want to say it feels surgical sometimes, but sometimes it kind of is, because you have to be able to shut yourself off and say, okay, this is how we're going to handle this, because that person isn't going to react maybe the way that you're thinking they're going to, or the way that you would understand, with you, I do know you more. You also, though, we're dealing with people, you make it about them. It wouldn't be about me. You know what I mean? It's how are you? What are the questions, who, what, where, why from you, supporting you and your thoughts. Like, okay, Justin, how are you feeling today? What would you like to do about that? You don't know. Okay.
Oh my gosh, is this how she talks to you and you're
ideas.
she's
I'm
shrinking
trying
you?
to tell you, man.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. So let's try to think of different ideas that
wow.
we can do, and
yeah.
And it's just kind of just falls naturally, and that's where it comes into that. I'm able to kind of shut it off a little bit and say, okay, this is what we actually need to do. Doesn't mean I always listen to my own advice, but it works. Once you see those different things work and you see how it affects other people.
So you were able to remember that I'm going to do this because it works. It wasn't ever weird for you to be like, this is my husband. Like,
it's always weird because it is, yes, because you were my husband and it's a different situation. I'm also feeling those same emotions. It's, again, with it being someone else in their experience and not necessarily knowing them, I can step back a little bit. My clients were like family to me, though. So, that's also very hard because I felt what they felt. Because some of them are a lot better off. Some of them, are higher functioning, doing great. Some of them are not. Some won't understand. You know what I mean? So to think like, oh, I can grieve. I can go through this. This person may never understand that. They may never be able to come out of where they're at because they don't understand. They don't see it that way, or, it can take a lot more time than the average person to try to work through that.
And because you were in the middle of it, is a little bit, I think that goes back even to like the similarities in the drastic differences between, as we keep doing these interviews with different people. We did the interview with Heather, and she had said, being a hospice nurse for so long, losing Ethan changed things for her. She had moments of, do I even want to do this job anymore?
And still does.
Says she still does.
Yeah.
I see the similarities there for you, where it's like you want to use all your training. It's what you know. It's like, this is the exact situation that, this isn't a drill. This is the real life thing, but it's your real life thing.
Yeah.
You say to me a lot, I know it was your mom and it's not the same, but I keep trying to tell you that I don't want you to feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
My hurt's not more important than yours.
Yeah, I know. And I appreciate that. I've never felt that.
And I worry sometimes that as much as I appreciate you, I worry that you don't. I worry that you worry too much about everyone else and not enough about yourself.
I know.
That's my worry.
But I know what I need. And that's something that going through a lot of those things has helped. Is I know myself and my mental health to where if I get to a certain point, I know there's something that I need to do. I know that those might not be always the same things every time. And I would say working with people in my training has helped me myself.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not supposed to do those things, but you still personalize it and bring it back to yourself. And, I mean, and when you learn something like that, I feel that you should self-reflect, because we all can change and be better, and it's going to help in those situations.
Did you ever worry, or have you worried, like, just because, this is the first time Justin's ever, been through anything like this. Was there ever, just full transparency, ever a moment where you were like, he may not come back from this? Or like there's a possibility like this could drive him into madness. Like, as a spouse, we worry, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want him to smoke, and we don't want him to be bad to their bodies, because we want him to live a long time, and but there's other worries too when it comes to marriage. So it's like, did you ever have moments where you worried, or have you ever had a moment where you're just like, God, he may not bounce out of this?
Yeah. In the beginning, it was very detrimental to him and his psyche, and like he was up and down and all over the place. And I mean, you there's, unfortunately, and maybe it's very blunt and might come off kind of rude, but there's no bringing those individuals back.
Right.
There's you have to, and you have to move forward, and if you can't, you can't bring that person back to try to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, like, that's really what I felt. I was like, this, I mean, she is everything. Like,
yeah,
I can't imagine losing that person and being able to come back. And he sat in his sadness a lot, and it was hard to see him like that. And
did you ever feel behind that pressure, because now you have stepped into full caretaker? So no more mom, no more female sounding board, because like his person,
Right.
that person for him is gone. Did you ever feel, or have you ever felt more pressure now to be his everything?
I mean, I don't think I feel pressure, honestly, because I feel that I'm never going to be able to take that position. And that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I'm not here to replace her or fit in that position, because she is her and she deserves to still have that spot.
Yeah.
It's just, there might be some other things to take on. We might, but I don't think so. I don't feel that I've ever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. As difficult as it is to watch him suffer, you sort of sign up for it when you get married, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of, this is like the better
Right.
for worse type thing.
Yeah.
And you've seen him at his worst.
Right.
And you've seen him at his best.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's part of the contractual agreement of marriage.
I did say that, and I said I do.
Yeah.
Sign the paper.
Yeah.
I think
So we're stuck.
to elaborate a little more on what you just asked her, I think she knew. I think that was a fear of hers, whether she saw it or not.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, is he going to be able to come back from this thing? I think that was an initial fear for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember you telling me very early on, like the first week, and I'm paraphrasing, but like something to the extent of, hang out, we're in this as long as you need to and do what you need to do, but we have to find a way to come back, because if you don't, then it changes who you are.
Yeah. I had that conversation with Kyle like a few weeks ago. I was just having a rough night, which is the majority of my nights, and And I just was very honest in asking, do you think you could do this, forever? Like, what if I'm like this forever? What if you one day had a wife who was ambitious and outgoing and saw the good in the world and had a passion and thirst for life, and then all of a sudden now you have a mentally ill spouse who has these moments of just disparity and mania and anxiety like I've never known. Can you do it? Do you think you could do this? And he couldn't answer because it's a really scary thing to think about.
Yeah.
In a marriage that I don't know. Of course, I never imagined that we would be going through this. I thought we would be grieving together over the passing of our parents and things like that. Even like unexpected things like cousins or friends.
Right.
Kyle's best friend died 2 weeks before our wedding of cancer, and so we kind of, those were things we kind of expected. Like these were detours that we sort of expected, but we never expected to enter into this, and
Right.
It's been very eye-opening for our marriage. I think. But I am a firm believer, and I have always believed, and Kyle and I have had no shortage of tough experiences in our marriage. In the 18 years that we've been with each other, we've had some crazy, crazy things happen and some really devastating things happen. And so we've walked through a lot of fires together. Mm-hmm. And I think being lucky to find someone that you can share your life with in all of its glory and all of its ugliness, and just to still come out on top,
Right.
and to share those moments with each other at the very end, and knowing that we did this, we walked through this together is really, really cool. I mean, it is like, I just don't even have words for like
Mm-hmm.
finishing through, crossing through the finish line.
Yeah. And who knows what that'll look like you talk about, you know what I mean? You guys were one way before. You might not be completely 100% that energetic but you'll still...
Yeah. And marriage is evolutionary, right? Because we are, as people, evolutionary.
Changes as
I think
we change.
Constantly.
Grief forces you into like drastic evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tailspin into...
I found
it's
like...
crazy.
Just recently, like, obviously my friendship, I hate to say it, I really do, because maybe like ships passing in the night, even though obviously we enjoy each other quite a bit, would we have ever had the opportunity to find that out?
Oh, no.
Without this.
No.
And in turn, I've gotten to meet other people through, it's like me and you are friends, but I've managed to make a couple other friends, through you. And there's been a few instances where I've had some really good times with groups of people that I maybe would have never had those times without. And is the trade-off worth it? You can't really think about that kind of stuff. And it's so easy to be like, yeah, I'd really rather have my mom back. But I can't have my mom back. But I can have these friends.
And I always say, and I try to stray away from the religious aspect of this, just because I'm trying to meet people, all types of people where they are in their journey. And but for me specifically, something I always think about is, God doesn't cause these things, but He uses it. And He uses our pain and He uses our suffering for bigger things, bigger than us. And sometimes it manifests itself in the way of meeting new people and connecting over some of life's most shittiest things, and doing life together. And that's really what I feel like a lot of the silver lining is in this, is that it's definitely a giant door being slammed in our faces, maybe repeatedly, maybe even with our fingers in there. But there are windows being opened, and opportunities and conversations and hugs and so much vulnerability. And we would have never known.
And maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it's insight we don't have yet.
Right.
Maybe 10 years from now we look back and
we're the fucking Dalai Lama.
we're the best of friends.
Yeah.
You're shooting high. And I like to think we'll have a friendship we would never want to forego.
Yeah. And
And
our
certain
families.
things had to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And life's weird like that.
It is.
The give and take of it is so fucking heavy when you really think about it.
I try not to get there. I try not to get into that heavy.
I feel like this
It's
show
so
kind of
big.
forces it on us a little bit.
Yeah. It does. It definitely.
I think our best stuff is when we're uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. And I'm constantly uncomfortable. So
Yeah, I don't even remember what comfortable feels
Yeah.
like. I don't.
Yeah. But man, I'm so grateful to know you both, just as a married couple, but also as separate people. Alyssa, you have opened my eyes to so many different things, and it's so you're just such a refreshing person, and you have such incredible talents in being able to communicate with people that are non-communicative, and I think that's so amazing.
I appreciate
So
that.
amazing. So I'm grateful to be entered into your lives and be a piece of furniture in it. So
We appreciate you. You've done a lot for us, and you've been there a lot for Justin and giving him another outlet and helping create such a great platform for people and such an out for you guys that I couldn't have asked for a better person to help me support him. So
thank you.
thank you.
Justin, dry it up over there, buddy. He is such a baby. Oh, that has been about 50 minutes of Justin just bawling his eyeballs out over there. Just what a weenie.
No idea what you're talking about.
Oh, man. I'm looking forward to future weeks and unpacking the things that are about to come at us like a freight train. And I know we're gonna come out on top of this. I'm fully confident, and I thank you for your trust in me. I know it's hard to believe sometimes, but we can do this, and we are doing it. And man, I'm proud to know you, sir.
The feeling's mutual.
Yeah. So hey, listen, guys, we're glad that you could tune in tonight. Thank you so much to Alyssa and her transparency in her weird marriage. And sharing all the good stories about Deneen. And we just thank you guys for tuning in, walking the walk with us. So we hope to catch you next week. And
hang in there, guys.